Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast, brought to you today by Nick and the magnanimous Bert.
Man, I was feeling real good about these last few, and then you called me Megatron,
Right.
and now I'm confused.
The Megatron Bert.
What's the word?
Magnanimous.
I think of that and I think of nutmeg. I know it doesn't even sound the same, but that's where my mind goes first.
Well, what it means is with great spirit.
Oh yeah, I'm spiritful. Is that a word? Spiritful?
You are magnanimous. Maximus Prime.
Maximus Prime. That's what I'm talking about, Nick.
Optimus Prime. Oops. Magnanimous Optimus Prime.
Now we're going to confuse everyone because last podcast that y'all should have watched, which had an amazing song at the end. If you didn't listen to it, that's your fault.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's your fault. Okay. In fact, I still got it in my head. I can't wait to hear the song at the end of this one because I think it's 3 times better than the one we just listened to, which is hard to believe because the last one was kind of a banger.
Yeah. Oh, it was a banger, and I'll be the judge. I don't know if it could be 3 times better. We'll see.
It's going to be 3 times better, Nick. Trust and believe.
All right.
But
all right, I will. You've not let me down yet.
See, I know what I'm talking about, Nick. We're a reputable podcast.
That's right. That's right.
But you guys are going to be confused because I did the story on the last one. But guess what, folks? I'm doing 2 tonight. We're recording on the same day, hence why we're wearing the same exact outfits. But you guys don't know if we're lying.
That's right.
Maybe this is a different day. Maybe we're wearing the same clothes twice. It's crazy.
Well, it happens to me a lot because I have a very limited amount of light colored clothing. I'm a black t-shirt kind of guy most of the time.
I enjoy different colors. I like to liven it up from time to time. I
am a depressing harbinger of doom. No, just kidding.
Jeez, dang, Nick.
I just got to represent my metal in horror movies, that's all.
Makes sense. I can understand that. Now, I'm excited a lot about this podcast, and it's for 2 reasons. The first one is the intro to this may be the greatest intro I've ever done in my entire life.
Those are big claims because you've done a lot of good ones.
Mostly because it's extremely funny.
Oh, wait. Hold on. The intro's very funny.
Yes.
But then I think you said it's a very serious topic as well or something.
Listen,
okay, interesting.
This is why you don't have people like me create this kind of stuff, okay? Because I find something, to be fair, when I created this intro, it was 1:30 in the morning.
Oh, you were delirious.
Possibly a little delirious. Okay.
Right.
To be honest, I had another story that I was going to do instead of this one. And then last night, there's a story that I had mostly done. And I'm like, if I threw a different intro in the beginning of that thing, this story would be more exciting because it is like a continuation of Nick's previous podcast. And I want
the one I most recently did?
Nope.
Oh, okay. See, I thought you just gave it all away right there, but I guess not.
No, sir. I would not do that. You know me by now.
I know. Everyone slips up, though.
Everyone does slip up. And that's the reason. That was reason number 2. Everyone's like, you only gave 1 reason. Second reason was because it pays homage to one that Nick did. Now, I will say, the last one I was a little bit nervous Nick would know. This one, I'm like, there's no way Nick knows this story. I will be devastated.
Well, I didn't know the last one either.
Well, if Nick knows this story, I'll be devastated because I specifically chose this one because I'm like, I bet he doesn't know this one. But it's based on something that he did a while back.
Which is kind of fair because I riffed off of your Roswell one to do the advanced technology one. So now you're just like boomeranging it back.
I mean, listen, that's what it's all about. Now, I will tell you that in the very first intro, it gives away everything. There's 0 thought process. You're going to know exactly what this entire story is about.
It's not off my crappy Bigfoot tale, is it?
I mean, do you want to hear the intro and you can find out? I will say this is a shorter narration than what we typically have.
Okay.
This will be a shorter podcast.
I think I just caught you.
You think you caught me?
I think I just caught you. Yeah, I think so.
There's only one way to find out.
Let's do it.
Hey, babe, our favorite podcast is about to come on.
Turn it on. I'll be right there.
Well, hurry up. I can't wait to see what Bert and Nick get into this week. They're so smart and entertaining. I think everyone should subscribe to their channel.
In the heart of Russia's Ural Mountains, 9 hikers embarked on a journey into the unknown. What happened next would become one of the most baffling mysteries in history.
On October 20th, 2023, Deceptive Reality released its 12th episode, delving into the enigmatic Dyatlov Pass incident. Brought to our attention by Nick, this tale captured the imaginations and curiosity of our listeners, sparking countless theories and speculations. But what if I told you there exists a hauntingly similar case on American soil? Tonight, we uncover the chilling tale of the Yuba County Five, a group of friends whose fate remains shrouded in mystery and darkness. Join us as we step into the shadows of the unknown and explore the American Dyatlov Pass incident.
It is so unfair that there isn't an Oscar for best podcast intro. I cracked up. That killed me.
That was pretty funny stuff. This sometimes we gotta have a little bit of fun because trust me, from here on out, it's not going to be funny. Okay, this is our moment to have a little bit of fun. Okay. But
I was totally wrong about my guess. Like every time I guess anything, really.
This one you wasn't even close on, but this one.
No.
For anyone that, and I'm pretty sure I've said this in other podcasts, the moment that I heard Dyatlov, because I had never heard of it before Nick brought it on, I fell in love with the story. And I started researching it after the podcast. Because I was like, this is such a crazy story.
It's one of my favorites.
But then people argued in our comments about, well, this was just an avalanche and there was this and there was that. And I'm like, it doesn't explain these other 5 or 6 things. When I was researching the Dyatlov Pass, I came across an article that said the American Dyatlov Pass.
I am so excited for this. I really am.
Well, I sat there and I'm like, that didn't happen in America. What are they talking about? And then I read it and I go, oh, this ain't the same story at all. But it's the same context.
Right.
So with the Dyatlov Pass, these people would do things and you're like, why did they do this? Why would this happen? That's literally this story.
Oh, yeah, I'm super pumped for this because Dyatlov is one of my favorites. So this is surely going to be one of my favorites too.
Dyatlov was one of my favorites that you've ever brought. And listen, you've brought some bangers. Shag Harbor. I love Shag Harbor. I'd never really heard of Shag Harbor. Dyatlov was another one that just blew my mind. The episode is dumb because there's certain ones that I like a lot. Like they stick with me.
Yeah.
The Black Eyed Kid ones. I knew about the Black Eyed Kids.
I like the Black Eyed Kids. But they spooked me out.
The way that you created the narrative, I'm like, I really like the way that this was presented. Which, by the way, out of nowhere, that video like blew up.
Yeah, I don't know why, because it seems like it must go in like spurts, like with that, because you'll hear people talking about the Black Eyed Kids and then you won't hear about it for, months and months, and then all of a sudden a whole new interest blows up in it.
Yes. And that's the thing, like when that one blew up, I'm like, that's the craziest thing that I think that would blow up. Like I would never guess that of all things, and it's random. It's not like it's a constant thing. What was the other thing that we talked about? There was another story that we did, and it just blew up, and you looked it up, and it's like, oh, it's because of the Mothman. The Mothman blew up that one time, remember?
Right.
There was a convention.
The Mothman did. Yeah. Yes, I do remember that.
And I'm like,
the Mothman comes in stages too, but I mean, even the story has it coming back in stages and that kind of thing.
Correct. But of all the stories you've brought,
but you never know.
Dyatlov is like my favorite one that you've ever brought.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever play that game that was based off of it?
There was a game based off of
Colat.
Hold on. I lost your,
your
audio. It was what?
Colat? K-H-O-L-A-T?
No. I had to think. There's a game that I played that started with a C. C-A-I-T. Something like that. No,
it's not that one. But this one is based off of, it's supposedly the story of what happened to the Igor Dyatlov and all them. And it's narrated by Sean Bean, who is the guy from Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and stuff like that. And it is beautiful. You should play that if you like Dyatlov Pass Incident, because
I love it. It's
really well done.
One of my favorite stories that we've ever done. And, it's
fun.
It was nostalgic when I went back because I wanted to create the narration. Like, I created this entire story and I'm like, man, this is such a Debbie Downer story. Like, I kind of want to have some fun with this somewhere. And that's where I came up with creating that new intro for it.
Well, just what you've done so far and what you've told us about this so far, I really feel like this is going to become one of my favorites.
Oh,
I got that feeling. I got that tingle.
Well, the first section doesn't give very much away. The only thing it really does is tells us who our players are in this story. Do you want to hear who the 5 members of our story is going to be? Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to know them a little bit. That's part of the fun.
You will. I basically did a profile for each one so you'd understand who they are and why they're important in the story.
I like it. See, this is going to be perfect. My spider sense is tingling.
Here we go.
Our story begins in 1978, focusing on a group of 5 inseparable young men from Yuba City, California. These friends, known collectively as the Yuba City 5, were each uniquely remarkable, despite their mild intellectual or mental health disabilities. They were high-functioning and deeply bonded. Jack Hewitt, the youngest at 24, was shy around strangers, but bloomed into a light-hearted, funny character among his friends. Ted Wheeler, the oldest at 32, took on a big brother role, especially towards Jack. Ted often made phone calls on Jack's behalf when social interactions became too daunting for him. Bill Sterling, at 29, was the spiritual pillar of the group, often found immersed in Christian literature at the library. Jack Madruga, a 30-year-old Army veteran, was the group's designated driver, a role he cherished. His pride and joy were his white and turquoise 1969 Montego, a symbol of his independence and the group's adventures. Gary Mathias, the unofficial leader at 25, also an Army veteran, had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and discharged from service. Returning to Yuba City, he initially struggled but found stability through the right mix of medication and support. He even managed to work part-time with his stepfather in a gardening business. These young men were united by their shared passion for sports, particularly basketball. Enrolled in the Gateway program, they played on its team with fervent enthusiasm. February 1978 brought them great excitement as their team was set to compete in a tournament, with the prize being a trip to Los Angeles, a dream they all eagerly anticipated. But what began as a journey of camaraderie and shared dreams soon spiraled into a mystery.
The group has a bit in common with the Dyatlov group because these are athletes.
Yes.
Dyatlov group were athletes as well.
Correct.
And that probably, if I had to guess, might become important because these people are not out of shape.
No.
So
they're not out of shape.
We shouldn't be assuming that at any point.
Well, they're not out of shape. They do say that there's mental incapabilities. So they all have some mental issues of some sort, but they're high functioning.
Right.
So
yeah, 2 of them were in the military.
2 was in military.
So that, to me, that says a lot.
Now, 1 was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that's why he was let go of the Army. But anyone that's been in the Army, they know that when you go into the Army, you're taught how to survive. Like, that's the first thing you're taught.
For sure.
You know, if you get caught out.
Right, that's basic training.
Basic training. If you get caught out in X, Y, and Z, this is how you survive in that environment. So that's pivotal. And you'll want to remember this. That's the Army, guys, is probably by far the most important thing in this entire story.
I'm not sure how it works in the American military. I assume it's kind of similar, but getting discharged from the military for a mental illness could be something as small as mentioning that you have mild depression.
It could.
In Canada, they won't accept you.
Yeah.
If you have anything going on, unless you've gotten a strict regimen of medication that's been going on successfully for more than a year. That's, I think, the rule here.
My understanding is that some of that has changed in the last 6 months or a year. And it's because our reserve list is getting so low that they're trying to get people and keep people within the military. But this was back in 1978.
Right.
So, you know, this was...
Well, actually, I'd bet it would be even easier to get discharged for any kind of mental illness because they didn't have a lot of tolerance for that.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I know that there was a lot of things that, you know, they really frowned on, and you would be kicked just automatically just for that. So it's very possible that that's true. Yeah, because they only wanted the best of the best.
I guess and I think back then also they didn't have any trouble getting people.
Yeah, they didn't. People was volunteering at that point.
Yeah. I guess the point I'm trying to get at with that is, like, that could be someone that you could spend years around and not even know that they have a problem.
Correct.
Like, it could be that mild.
Correct. Yeah. And these guys, they all kind of had different levels of, and most of it seemed like, for anyone, I don't want anyone to get this confused. It's more like of the standpoint of somebody might have had PTSD, or someone may have had, they were like OCD or
severe anxiety,
Asperger's or something like that. But all 5 of them had something, but that's what made them closer to each other, because whereas other people wouldn't accept them per se, they accepted each other. And in fact, they helped each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
they probably were really close.
Correct. Yeah. But because they were high functioning, they would go to these basketball tournaments, and that's important too. They were so athletic and they did so well that at these tournaments, they were one of the ones that could have potentially went like all the way.
Right. Yeah. I like that we got to know these people a lot more than we did the Dyatlov Pass people. Like, you can look into stuff, but it's very surface level with them.
Yeah. See, this one, I did a profile on, there was a profile that I found on, I think it was the FBI list for this case. And it kind of broke down each person and kind of what they had going on. So from a standpoint of starting out, I really wanted everyone to understand this is who these people are. Here's why they're important to the story. From here on out, it's a roller coaster ride.
I sure hope nothing bad happens to them.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be real disappointed if it goes that way. Just kidding.
It's gonna be a tough episode, folks. Well, now
there's gonna be a lot of tears.
Well, now you know who they are. Do you want to start getting into the actual case? What happened?
Yeah, I'm interested to see the parallels here. I'm excited.
You're about to. And it starts out kind of different, but they all kind of, it works its way back.
The fateful night of February 24th, 1978 found the Yuba City Five brimming with excitement. Their own tournament was set for the next day, but their beloved basketball team, UC Davis, was playing just 50 miles away in Chico, California. The lure of cheering on their favorite team was irresistible. So they piled into Madruga's Montego and set off for Chico. The atmosphere was electric as they cheered for UC Davis, who clinched a victory that night. Multiple witnesses recalled seeing the five friends, confirming their presence at the game. After the triumphant match, the group made a pit stop at a small convenience store in Chico. They picked up sodas, cartons of milk, and snacks, with the shop owner recalling their visit vividly. It was around 10 p.m., and he was eager to close for the night. The arrival of the five young men, jovial and energetic, delayed his plans, an annoyance he would later recount to investigators. That brief stop at the convenience store marked the last time anyone would see the Yuba City Five alive.
So I think we did learn a few important things in that segment.
Yes.
They were in good spirits.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the guy at the store thought they were nice kids.
Correct.
You know, everything seemed fine. They had food and drink.
Correct.
You know, they seem super prepared, so I'm more confident than ever everything's going to be fine.
Well, and that's the thing. At the very beginning, they said that all these people saw these five guys after they left the basketball game.
Right.
They go to this convenience store. The owner or the guy that ran the store, he said they were nice guys, but he was a little bit ticked off because they came in right at the end of the shift. And anyone that knows,
people in retail hate that.
It used to tick me off. I worked one retail job, and I would say, why are these buttholes coming in 5 minutes before we close? I've already closed down my till. Already counted my money. I'm ready to go, because I knew the moment that everyone left, the doors were locked, I had to take my till to the office. Then I had to take all of our equipment back to the back room. And then I had to do a surface level check of the area, had to clean some of the things, and then I could leave. But if you came in 5 minutes, we could not close until you left. Now, we would make the announcements.
Right.
Hey, butthole, we closed 5 minutes ago.
Get out.
Get out.
Yeah.
But of course, they would take their sweet old time. And then you'd have to recount your till again. It was just a pain. Like I say, I worked one retail job my entire life. That was for a company called Toys R Us, which is no longer around. And
we've talked about them before, I think.
I was the R Zone manager. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it was the video game section of Toys R Us.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did that for 1 year. I left because I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in automotive the rest of my life. So I'm going to take a year to think about this. And it's funny because I walked in, for anyone that doesn't know, I did car sales before that for a few years. And I didn't know if I still wanted to do that. So I go to Toys R Us and I get this job, and the woman looks at my resume and she goes, "You want to work here?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, this is no joke. She goes, now this was a long time ago. This was 2001, maybe. Anyway, she goes, "You know, I can only pay you like $7.50 an hour." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not worried about the money. I'm trying to figure out my life. Like, I need some time. It might be like 6 months." And she goes, "Well, I'm going to hire you. Like, you're way overqualified." So they put me in the electronics department because they're like, "What do you know a lot about?" And I'm like, "Electronics." And they said, "I'm going to put you there." So I was just an entry level. They gave me my own cash register. And the thing was, I loved video games, and I learned how to sell cars for years before that. So I just did the same thing that you would do selling a car. Someone would come in and I'd be like, "Oh, you're picking up a what? Oh, okay. Well, you understand you need another controller for that. Hey, do you have an RF module by chance? Oh, you're going to want to get an RF module, because if you take this home, you're not even going to be able to play it on your TV. Hey, out of curiosity, instead of getting the controller from the manufacturer, we got these Mad Cat ones that you can get for like a fraction of the cost. Wait a second. You got to get more than one game. This doesn't even come with a game. Did you know that? Did your son tell you that?" So the average cost.
You're upselling like a boss.
Yeah. So when I got there as an associate, the average cost per the equipment sold was like 200 and some bucks. They calculated within the first month, and they came over to the department And I saw everyone talking and they was trying to figure out what was going on. The average went from 200 something to like $450 some. The average.
Nice.
And the manager that was there, he was like, yeah, we're doing some different things. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching, I'm not figuring anything out. And the store manager walked away and I saw someone pull him over. And it was one of the other ladies that was over there. She ran another department. And it was like 2 days later, he came over to me. He's like, hey, come here. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm in trouble. Like, I never would have thought I got in trouble in retail. And he goes, hey, I was talking to whatever her name was. I can't remember what her name was. But he was like, she says that you like sell extra stuff in that department. I said, oh, yeah, man. They need it anyway. So I just tell them everything they need. So when they get home, they don't have to worry about it. And he goes, if I was to walk in, and he based like the sell me the pencil thing, when you go to interview and they say, hey, sell me this pencil, and you got to try to tell them how that was what he's doing to me. Okay. Well, let's say I had 2 kids at home and I come to buy, this was back when the GameCube had just came out, just FYI. He's like, if I want to buy a GameCube, what would you say? And I'd say, oh yeah, no problem. Hey, follow me. And I turned right around like we do in car sales, walked him right over. And I'm like, yeah, we've got this. We got it in 3 different colors. Which one is it you're looking for? I'm looking for like the purple. Okay, cool. Hey, this only has 1 controller. You said you had 2 kids, right? Yeah, well, you definitely want to get a second remote. You don't want to be passive.
Yeah, that's going to be problems.
Yeah, so I did this entire thing, and we got done, and he goes, dude, I would have bought all of that because you knew what you was talking about. You wasn't trying to sell me on the super high stuff. He goes, you're the reason that this is happening. And at this point, I have no clue what he's talking. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, am I not supposed to do that or something? He goes, oh, no, keep doing what you're doing. Well, then I felt bad because like a week later, the guy that was running the department was now running another department, and I was running that department. So then I felt bad.
I shouldn't feel bad for that. He should get good scrub.
Well, I felt bad because I'm like, I'm not staying here, guys. Like, this isn't my career path. I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that for a while. But yeah, man, that was like the bee's knees, as they would put it back in the day. But retail's so horrible, and people comes in like 5 minutes before, and they always want something obscure.
Oh yeah.
Or they want something that you got to check the back storage. Well, that's this convenient guy, right? He's probably done his till. He's got his stuff squared up. He's ready to go. It's probably a few minutes till. Now you got 5 people that probably have this incapability of speaking properly to people. So he's like, yeah. So he remembers these 5 kids.
Yeah.
So he remembers them. Everyone at the basketball game remembered him. And that was the last time they were ever seen alive, was by that guy. So a lot of
paranoid was he? Enough to murder?
No, maybe he's the murderers. If they got murdered, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't. No, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, everything's going to be fine, Nick. Why are you jumping straight to murder?
They got food, drink, a car. They're resourceful guys. Everything's going to be A1.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
What could go wrong?
I'm glad you mentioned all that, Nick. You broke that down really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's got to be fine.
Got to be fine. Let's move on to the next section.
It's a mystery.
Because I think it's pertinent with what you just said.
Let's do that.
That night, some of the boys' parents waited anxiously for their sons to return home. As the hours passed with no sign of them, worry began to spread. Phone calls between families confirmed the unsettling truth. None of the boys had come home. This was not only unusual, but deeply concerning. The boys were always diligent about keeping their loved ones informed of their whereabouts, especially on the eve of a tournament they had been eagerly anticipating. By the early morning light, the families knew something was terribly wrong. They contacted the police, launching a frantic search. The investigation was led by Lieutenant Lance Ayers, a man with a personal stake in the case. He had gone to high school with Ted Weir. This connection fueled his determination to uncover the truth and find the missing boys. As the first hours of the search yielded no clues, Lieutenant Ayers decided to broaden the search radius. This decision proved crucial. A few days later, they found Jack Madruga's cherished Montego, but it was in an unexpected location, 70 miles away from Yuba City, on a remote dirt road deep within a forest. The families were baffled. Why would the boys, who were supposed to be heading back home for their big game, end up in such an isolated area?
So the mystery
that's
begins.
Really weird.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really far off where they were trying to get to. And a dirt road, you know you're not on the right track if you're on a dirt road.
There's 2 military people.
Right.
Regardless of how long they was in the military or that they was discharged or any of that stuff, 2 different military people. They teach you how to survive and they teach you how to navigate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's 70 miles off.
I mean, the moment you leave, and the moment you leave pavement, you know it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You don't ever accidentally drive miles into the woods on a dirt road. That's never an accident. It can't be.
And in a dense forest, they said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not to mention, if they were thinking it was a shortcut, not a lot of, I don't know about where you are, but here, not a lot of dirt roads lead back to pavement again.
Yeah, not typically. Once you leave dirt, or once you leave paved and you go dirt, it stays that way unless there's 2 intersections, or I'm sorry, not intersections, but 2 interstates, and there's like a dirt road that goes off. That could happen. I see that sometimes, but not very often. Typically, once you're off the beaten path and it's gravel or it's, dirt road, it stays that way.
Yeah. I can think of 2 around here that will hit pavement again eventually, but both of them are completely, like, once you get halfway there, it's completely impassable by like a car or a truck. Like, you need, a dirt bike or a 4-wheeler, and sometimes you can't even get through on the 4-wheeler. So they must have known that.
Oh yeah, I mean, they would have figured it out, especially in California, because California is kind of a weird creature when it comes to roads. I remember we went on vacation. This was a few years ago, and there was an accident that was so bad that it turned all the traffic, and we was using Google to get back home. Google Maps, and it gave us another path to take. Well, what it didn't explain was this was literally in the middle of nowhere, and the roads were those that you'd be going this way, and then it was an abrupt turn. So you were doing like this serpent dance all the way down, and there'd be hills where you'd be climbing a hill and you have no clue what's coming over the other side, but it was so small of a road.
That's scary.
It was super spooky. That was the first time I think I white knuckled driving somewhere, because I'm like, in fact, I believe there was cars that was falling off of that path.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there was semi trucks, because Google was diverting traffic to this little small road, but it was diverting in both directions. So there'd be semi trucks that would have to stop and then try to navigate themselves on these roads, and they were getting off the road. I remember there was something in the middle of the road that I remember what it was. It was snow. It was snowing. It wasn't vacation.
Oh.
Well, I think we was going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And these cars had to get a running start to get up the hill, but then they would start to slide and they would freak out. Or maybe it was dirt. I can't really remember. Jess is going to remember. She's going to be like, what is he talking about? It was either mud or it was snow. I can't remember. But like cars was like getting stuck, and then there was guys that would get off the road and help push them to get them out of whatever it was. It could have been mud. I can't remember. But I mean, that's scary. But now you've got these guys, 5 of them, 2 of them from the military, that's 70 miles out. They're in a dense forest. They're on a non-paved road. Something's going to give.
Right. The other thing I was thinking too, if they hit a detour like you did, they would it. They only came up that day.
Yes.
Like they would have hit it on the way up.
Yes. And most of those maps wouldn't have those roads anyway.
Right.
Because this is 78.
Especially back then.
Yeah, in 78, all they had was those maps. You get it like filling stations or something like that. Where
Right.
you open it up and you'd be doing this number in the back seat, trying to figure out where you are.
Man, I don't think they'd even need it.
No, probably
Like
not.
it sounded like they just hit one road up that they were familiar with, and then,
Right.
something went really awry on the way back.
Right. Now, one thing that's interesting is the cops wanted to figure this out because a friend of his he went to high school with is one of the people that was in the car.
Right. Yeah.
So they had the right people searching for him. There was someone there that hadn't expressed interest in this case.
I wonder how long it was before they widened their search.
I don't know that it said.
That seemed like it happened quick.
Yeah, it was relatively
Yeah,
quick.
it seemed like it was quick though.
But it's a good thing they did because the moment they did, they found the car. So that's important.
Yeah, I think they got lucky on that because that's sounds like a random dirt road.
Yes.
And no one even reported it to him, so it was an unused one probably.
So they found him. The mystery's just now starting.
Yeah.
Nick. The mystery's just beginning.
Right. Yeah, what a start though, because I can't think of any good reason they'd be doing this.
No. And it only gets
weirder.
weirder.
I was up to some wild stuff with my friends when we were kids, and I don't think we ever got in that kind of situation, not even once.
Yeah, my buddy John and I, we've been off the beaten path a few times, but we've never been that bad off. As kids, we never.
Yeah, and I doubt in the kind of car that guy had either.
Yeah, Montego, yeah.
Nah. Crazy.
Well, do you want to see what the next mysterious set of circumstances and what they discover is?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it will give us any more light on this, but I don't think it will.
Well,
but I'm excited to hear it anyway.
Here's what we know. There's 5 guys. They're not at the car, but they found the car. Next, they got to find the guys.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens next.
Let's do it.
It made no sense for the Montego to be abandoned in such a remote forest, 70 miles from Yuba City. Despite being covered in snow, there were no signs it had been stuck. With a quarter tank of gas left and no keys in the ignition, the police hotwired the car, which ran perfectly fine. There were no mechanical issues to explain the sudden abandonment. It seemed as if the boys had simply parked the car, stepped out, and vanished. Inside the vehicle, officers found remnants of their convenience store visit, wrappers, cans, and cartons, but no keys. The doors were shut and a single window was slightly rolled down. It was as if they had left in a hurry. But why? The search area shifted to the surrounding forest. Days passed with no trace of the boys, and then nature herself seemed to conspire against the search. A massive snowstorm descended, blanketing the area and forcing authorities to halt their efforts until the thaw of early spring. During this agonizing waiting period, the families clung to hope, offering rewards and pleading for any information. The police fielded countless tips and unconfirmed sightings, but every lead led to a dead end. The Yuba City 5 had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and an ever-growing sense of dread. As winter's grip tightened, the forest kept its secrets, and the search was suspended.
So there's some other parallels here now too, because the search in Dyatlov got suspended a number of times because of storms as well, and hid evidence.
Now you see why it's called
which
the American
probably will happen here. Yeah, I can see it too. You probably saw when we were listening to the narrative. I looked up what the 78 Mercury Montego looked like.
Yeah,
that's not something you take down dirt roads.
It's not much. No,
like it's not suited for that.
No, not
I was going to be sure. No. So it's interesting too that seems like they finished off all their snacks, had the window partially rolled down, and took off. Like
quarter of a tank.
I don't
gas.
let people leave my. Yeah.
No mechanical issues. It's like they parked it and left.
Yeah. Now I don't let people leave my car without us rolling up the windows. Because number one, if you're in a wooded area, you're going to come back and it'll be full of mosquitoes.
Right.
And number two, if you're not in a wooded area, someone will come, reach in your window and unlock your car door.
Right.
So they must have left in a hurry.
Which is weird. 70 miles away.
Yeah.
On a dirt road. Quarter of a tank of gas. No mechanical issues.
Right.
They get out of the car and take their keys.
And
just abandon the car.
Yeah.
It's not
now,
like
with all that you just said, sorry. And there was 5 guys.
Yep.
So they're filling every seat in the vehicle. It's not like someone's going to hop in with a gun and make them go there.
Correct.
Because it's just not going to fit.
Correct.
This mystery deepens, man.
And it's not like they parked in front of something. They abandoned this on just a regular road.
Yeah. Like, and they had plenty of gas. They could have easily turned around and gotten back to the road.
Right.
Like, it doesn't sound like there's a bunch of twists and turns. It seems like they just found this road and took off down it, and at a certain point jumped out and ran away.
Correct. That's what doesn't make any sense.
Man.
This is Dyatlov all over again.
It sure is. It sure is. They're already displaying a ton of behavior that's just not rational for people to do.
Very erratic.
And like you said, that's Dyatlov all over again.
And the weird thing is, everyone's going to say, yeah, but they had mental deficiencies. 2 were in the army. They weren't that deficient.
Right. Not to mention, these parents wouldn't let them go anywhere together.
Right.
If they didn't think that they could function that way. Like when people, especially in the 70s, when people were saying that people were like had mental deficiencies, which is, I don't even think that's the right way to say it. Like we might not even say that now, but they could be talking about someone who has dyslexia. They could be talking about someone who's like, you know, someone who's a little depressed. They could like stuff that's perfectly normal.
Correct. I'm a prime example of this. When I was in school, they put me in classes that was learning disability. Well, come to find out as an adult, I figured out I had dyslexia.
Right.
So
yeah, I know a guy who had dyslexia when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the things that they said about him were so mean. He is super smart, like incredibly smart.
Yeah.
Incredibly nice. But if he was one of those guys in that car, they would have used a word for him that I don't like.
Oh, yeah.
To say.
For sure. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's a different day and age. Like, I don't mind saying things like mental deficiencies because that's just medical terminology, right? Like a lot of people would be like, oh, you can't say that. That's so mean. It's like, it's really not. Like we've made it mean over the years. Yeah. But that is a form of a mental deficiency. Like if they was talking about my dyslexia, that's a mental deficiency to me. Like that's not.
Yeah. I don't even know if that's considered wrong. I just don't know enough, and I want people to be sure that I'm trying to be respectful for them.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like I wouldn't use the terminology that we used back in the day, but like,
no.
But even that is like, it's a medical terminology that we've deemed it a cuss word in essence, but in reality, it's people feel weird being called that, and it's typically it's not even the people. Like typically, it's their family members and I consider that people that have a expressed interest in whatever it is, their child, their parent, whatever it might be, and they get sensitive about it. So, and I understand that, but like we do as a society change things that are meaningless, just medical terminology into, things that are hurtful and we shouldn't use it, and yada, yada. But like I would consider my dyslexia a form of, mental, it's to me, that's a mental deficiency. I don't see it as a bad thing. Like I consider myself now. Here's what's weird: because I'm dyslexic with numbers and letters. So like when I'm reading, like it can be difficult. And sometimes I have to read things 2 and 3 times to grasp what it is. And with numbers, I'm the same way. If you give me 4 numbers, I'm going to flip 2 of them every single time. But because I know that, I've just learned another way of navigating it in life that most people don't have to.
Right.
So most people.
And I think these guys were probably the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like a prime example, I can do math in my head. Most people cannot.
Right.
I can do it in my head because I've had to figure out ways of doing it so that I'm capable. Because, I mean, I've been in finance for the last 30 years. I didn't get there by being dumb. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, you know, these people was unfortunately labeled with something that just means that back in 1978, they wasn't firing at 100% by the standards of society, basically.
Yeah, I mean, back then they were still like breaking kids' hands if they tried to write left-handed.
Yeah.
So not a model civilization. No. But they all obviously all could function well enough to do stuff.
I mean, 2 was in the military.
Yeah, like you can't be completely incapable and be in the military at the same time. You can't.
No. Correct. So this already has all the Dyatlov feels in it's how I'm going to put it.
Yeah. Well, especially that time of year, they definitely wouldn't abandon the car that easy either.
No, because now they're out in the cold. They're in the snow.
Right.
They was in a warm car.
Yeah.
Or if they got out of the car, why wouldn't they go back to the car?
Yeah. I mean, like we said earlier, the windows were down. They could have unlocked it. They didn't get locked out. No. They had the keys with them.
Correct.
Like, yeah, it just doesn't add up. Do
you want to hear the next piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to figure this out, but I need more information.
Maybe.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
We're professionals.
You never know.
We might know this.
That is true. Maybe.
Check this out.
On June 4th, 1978, over 3 months since the boys vanished, a group of motorcyclists on a long road trip found themselves on those same desolate dirt roads near where the Montego had been discovered. About 20 miles from that point, they stumbled upon a secluded cul-de-sac and decided to stretch their legs. As they looked around, they spotted an old trailer in the distance, curiosity pulling them closer. The trailer, once maintained by the Forestry Service, had clearly seen better days. One window was broken, hinting at abandonment. Driven by curiosity, the motorcyclists approached, intending to take a quick peek inside. They were met with an overwhelming stench, an odor that spoke of decay and death. Quickly shutting the door, they recoiled in horror. Inside lay the body of Ted Weir, the oldest of the Yuba City Five. Ted, the caretaker of Jack, was found wrapped in 8 blankets on a bed. His feet were frostbitten and gangrenous, and he appeared to have lost nearly half his body weight. His beard growth suggested he had been alive for approximately 13 weeks, enduring a slow death from starvation and exposure. But the true mystery lay within the trailer. Scattered in plain sight were numerous fire-making materials, paperback books, kindling, matches, and firewood. There were also heavy clothes for winter and an ample supply of military sea rations, enough to feed someone for a year. Yet none of these resources had been utilized. A full propane tank sat unused outside, which could have provided warmth if turned on. It seemed unthinkable that Ted, or anyone in his position, would ignore such life-saving supplies. Some might argue that Ted, in his distress, lacked the common sense to use them. But there was another clue. Gary Mathias's shoes were found inside the trailer. Gary, a former Army serviceman, had survival training. If he had been there, why hadn't he utilized the available resources?
Man, that is wild. I have to see, it seems like for this episode, every every narration I have to look something up. And what I looked up this time was it would take you 6 or 7 hours to walk 20 miles.
And think about it, they abandoned the car at night.
Right. Even in pitch black, you would know if you're on the road or not. Why head off into the bush?
Yes.
Like,
so
it just,
think about this.
Doesn't add up.
They got snacks. They drive 70 miles away. They stop their car on a dirt road and abandon it, and then walk another 20 miles. They had a quarter of a tank of gas in the car. They could have drove the 20 miles.
Yeah, they walk for a work day, a whole work day, nonstop, no breaks.
Now, one of them is found, the oldest of the group, 31 years old. He's found with 8 blankets wrapped around him and gangrenous feet. Frostbitten, gangrenous
from the frostbite.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's matches. There's things you can burn. There's a propane tank outside.
Yeah.
There's enough food to last a year. Now, he lasted.
Yeah.
He survived about the 3 months, roughly, almost.
Yeah.
He had a beard long.
He starved to death over that time.
He starved to death. And there's food in the building that he's at, which was military sea rations. Now, some people would say...
Now, was he...
Go ahead.
Was he one of the military guys or no?
No. But they found the shoes to the guy that was in the military, which means he was at a minimum there.
Right. Yeah.
He would have seen these rations, knew what they was, and knew how to prepare them.
Yeah. Why would they stay there 3 months?
Well, only one person and the shoes to another was found at that location.
Right. And why would one leave without his shoes?
That's a great question. We're going to have a lot of questions this episode, Nick.
I guess so. Because, well, here, let me set this stage for you, which I'm sure you thought about this. But the bikers pulled into a cul-de-sac on this dirt road.
Yes.
Right? And they could see the cabin from the cul-de-sac.
Yep.
So that means that you can see the cul-de-sac from the cabin. So if there were multiple guys there, like maybe, let's say, for example, maybe that first guy was too sick to move about at some point.
Sure.
But we know there was at least one other guy there at one point.
Yep.
He could have seen the cul-de-sac, and all he would have to choose is left or right, and he'd find the car again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Now, based on the fact that they were on the same dirt roads, it didn't say how long they was on the dirt roads from where the car was found.
Right.
They could have drove that for like 15 miles, right?
Yeah.
But be able to see
the cul-de-sac was... the cul-de-sac was like... Yeah, it was like 20 miles they drove, which would only be like on a motorcycle. That's not very...
Yeah, that's not very long. It's relatively quick.
That's not crazy long.
Right.
Yeah. So... No, I can't imagine what would have happened there. And why would one guy be gone without his shoes?
This is Dyatlov all over again, because you look at this stuff and you go, why did they do that? Like, that's what I kept doing with Dyatlov. I'm like, why would they do X, Y, and Z? These are people that, they deal with this day in and day out. They should know not to do the things that they did. Like, some of the stuff you can understand. They took off their clothes because that's a condition of being so cold that you then feel hot.
Yeah.
So I understood that part.
Right.
But like, some of the weird things they would do, I'm like, that makes no sense. Even if that's the case, it doesn't make sense.
Right. If anything, this is almost more mysterious because this takes place over the course of so many months. Like they had so many opportunities to correct their situation.
Yep.
Unless something else was going on.
Right. Correct.
Like, man, I'd be interested in knowing who owned this camp.
Well, remember, they only found one person on this camp.
That's right. But we're pretty sure there was someone else. Maybe not. Maybe that one person took the other guy's shoes as well as his own.
He could have. That's true. That's true.
But why that in that case?
Maybe if we drift a little further, we can get some more clues.
Yeah. I think we need it because I'm just shooting wildly in every direction right now.
That's perfect. That's what we want, Nick.
A day after the grim discovery of Ted Weir's body in the trailer, searchers found the remains of Sterling and Madruga. Located approximately 11 miles from the car, their bodies bore the marks of significant predation. Animals had ravaged their remains, leaving only enough for investigators to conclude that both men had succumbed to hypothermia. 2 days later, the search led to Jack Hewitt's remains, found 2 miles from the trailer where Ted Weir had perished. Hewitt, too, had died of hypothermia. With 4 of the 5 accounted for, only Gary Mathias remained missing. To this day, he has never been found. The only trace of Gary Mathias was discovered about a quarter-mile from the trailer where Ted was found blankets and a flashlight. It suggested a temporary refuge, but no clues as to his final fate or direction. The questions multiply. Why did these 5 men drive 70 miles off course the night before their eagerly anticipated basketball tournament? Why did they abandon their vehicle in the dead of night, in the midst of a snowstorm, and hike 20 miles into the wilderness? Upon finding the trailer, why did they not use the abundant food, blankets, and clothing available to them? How could they endure such suffering for 13 weeks, succumbing to starvation and exposure amidst ample supplies?
And there's a lot to deal with there.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we even start? So it seems to me like at some point they started, like, I can imagine there's 2 guys that they found who maybe died of exposure on the way. They were 10 miles from the car.
Yep, 11. Mm-hmm.
So 11. So I'm assuming that they were all together, all 5 of them were together at that part.
That'd be my guess.
I mean, that seems reasonable. Like I wouldn't think they'd all split up.
I wouldn't think so.
No, but then again, you wouldn't have thought that the Dyatlov Pass people would have split up either.
Correct.
And they did.
They did.
But let's just go under the assumption that they didn't split up, and they were walking together for whatever reason. They lose 2 of the guys at the 11-mile mark. The rest of them keep going. We know that the guy in the cabin didn't make it to the cabin on his own. There was another guy there at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy who made it there with him and another guy seemed to have shot off in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, someone took blankets and a flashlight from the cabin and went off somewhere else just to die.
Yeah. Well, they was never found again.
They weren't found again, but I think it said that they found flashlight and blankets.
The blanket, right. But he was never found.
Yeah. Right. They just presumed that was some evidence of him.
Yes.
Yeah. Seems like exceptionally bizarre behavior, because I don't think that guy in the cabin wrapped himself up in blankets, not 8 blankets.
No. I mean, how could you?
Right. Someone who could move around and was physically fit was there with him.
But what's weird is, if they were capable of doing that, why wouldn't they just start a fire?
Right. Why wouldn't they start a fire? Why wouldn't they turn on the propane? Why wouldn't they feed the guy?
Right. Correct.
Right.
He sat there and
if he was there 3 months Yeah, and I'm also starting to think there too that he didn't get the frostbite right away, because if he had and he had left there unattended long enough to starve, I think the infection from the gangrenous feet would have got him before that. Yeah. So I think he got that later.
For sure. The weird thing is they survive 14 weeks. Why wouldn't you just go back to the car? If
right, because you can see the road.
Correct, yeah. Like if it was a case where you have obviously the weather got bad for a while.
Yeah.
But if I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere and I know that for whatever reason I left this car that runs and it's got a quarter of a tank of gas, why would you make your attempt to not get back? Now, what I question is, we'll never know why they got out of the car. That makes no sense.
Right.
I'm curious if they all made it to the cabin. The weather got bad. They got stuck. And the two that was found 11 miles away was making their way back to the car and succumbed to hypothermia.
Right. Yeah, but I wonder why they'd go through the woods.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because so what they could have done is they could have gone and say, well, I feel like they would know what way they come from.
Yeah.
Because you hit the cabin. Did you approach from the front of the cabin or the back of the cabin?
Right.
You would know that, right?
Correct.
So that means you go to the road which you can see from the cabin, and then you go the way you came, and you will hit the car.
Right.
That's just how it is.
Yes.
Now, let's say somehow you forgot what way you came. One of you guys go this way for however long. One of you go this way for however long. One of you is going to hit the car, come get the other guy.
Right.
Like, now you might say, well, in the beginning they were panicked. There's no way they were panicked for 13 weeks.
No.
Like,
nothing in this story makes any sense. This is literally Dyatlov all over again.
Oh, yeah. And one thing you said sort of clued me into something that I didn't pick up on. I assumed that those two guys died on the way to the cabin.
They don't know.
But now I think it's more likely what you said, that they were leaving it.
That's what I believe, because I believe they were all relatively healthy. If a series of them made it there, now we know that the weather got bad. I think that the two left too early. The weather, maybe they thought there was a break in the weather. They got most of the way there, and then the weather hit hard again.
Yeah. The other thing too, which I seem to remember in the beginning, it said that the storm didn't come in until the day after they would have got lost. So that means they probably wouldn't have died of exposure on the way to the cabin.
No, very
that's only
unlikely.
6-7 hours. Yeah. So
it's very weird.
They wouldn't have had frostbite. They wouldn't have died on the way to the cabin. But they were making trips out. The only conclusion I can come to is they were making trips out of the cabin after they found the cabin, but they were going in weird directions.
The crazy thing to me is, let's say they all made it to that cabin.
Right.
Two of them had military background.
Yeah.
They didn't start a fire. There was no evidence of them ever starting a fire.
Right.
They didn't figure out the propane. They didn't figure out the MREs.
Nope.
The only thing they figured out how to do was water.
Yeah. And one guy left without his shoes.
Yes. Which makes no sense.
Yeah. That's absolutely mental.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I got no ideas, man. I really don't.
Do you want to continue on? I can't
explain this behavior.
Maybe there's some additional info?
Yeah, there's some key thing that we're missing. Although I'll tell you what else I'd like to do, and I'm going to look this up later.
Yeah.
If we should be able to find historic temperatures for the day this happened.
Yeah, for sure.
And I want to know that too.
And the dates are in the thing.
Anyway, yeah, let's go on and see if we can glean any more info.
Let's see what we got.
Theories abound as to why this tragedy unfolded. Some speculate that Gary Mathias may hold the key, his disappearance fueling suspicions of his involvement. Others suggest a simple navigational error led them astray. Yet, none of these explanations fully account for the deliberate nature of their journey. If they had merely gotten lost, one would expect erratic driving patterns, circling in confusion. But instead, they drove in a straight line, reached an isolated point, and then abandoned the vehicle. This behavior is inconsistent with mere disorientation. What compelled them to venture onto that desolate road? Why did they trek through a snowstorm to a remote trailer, only to ignore the life-saving supplies within? These actions suggest a force or decision beyond mere accident or confusion. Something drove the Yuba City 5 into that wilderness, something that remains a mystery.
Yeah, so that mostly backed up what we've been saying. One thing that strikes me as crazy is how people will make lame explanations. It's like they know all this crazy stuff happens and they're like, they just took a wrong turn.
Right.
Yeah, but what about everything else?
Right.
That doesn't explain anything.
It doesn't explain anything. And that's part of the problem with all this, is trying to figure out where this all navigates.
Right.
Because none of it makes sense. I didn't think that we would pick up on everything. And that's why I wanted to put that continuation there, just to kind of break down, hey, you know, here's some questions you would have, but you actually nailed all of those questions right off the get-go.
Right. I had a thought early on when we first heard about the cabin, and that is there's 2 ex-military guys, and there's a cabin full of MREs. Is there any connection there? Like, did these guys know this was there? But then I thought, if they knew it was there and they'd been there before, surely they would have known to drive the car to the cul-de-sac.
You sure would think they would.
So I don't think that's any kind of theory.
No.
Like,
and
no,
that was the conclusion to that entire story right there. So
right. So we got no more.
We're left with all these questions.
Man, I do have so many questions. Like, where did you land on this? Do you feel like they all made it to the cabin? I kind of think they did.
I think they all made it to the cabin. I think that they ventured out from the cabin. I think the 2 that died, that had succumbed within 11 miles, I believe that's because they went out too soon. And I think they're trying to find the car again. That's my gut. That's what my gut tells me.
Right. And they have one guy that's injured. Now, he may have been injured early on, but it got worse.
Yes.
As time went on. So maybe that's why he eventually got left there.
Right.
But they must have abandoned him really early on, though, because they never fed him.
No. And there was MREs there that would have lasted a year.
Right.
It's not even a small amount.
I don't know about in America, but in Canada, MREs are delicious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're just
that's
wonderful,
good.
Nick. They love them here. That's an exaggeration. They hate the MREs. There is some that's pretty decent.
Ours are like ravioli and stuff like that. And they're
okay, this is weird of me. I watch the YouTube videos where they eat the MREs just to see how bad they are. And some of them are really good and some of them are really bad. Like really bad.
All the ones I've tried from here are really good. But I'm sure if you eat them all the time, it's not so good.
Oh, I'm sure it's not so good. Yeah. I'm sure it's probably not good.
Not to mention you eat a handful of ravioli about the size of my fist and it's like 14,000 calories or something like that.
Well, they pack them. They pack them so you survive.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, this was sitting there. I don't care if it's not your favorite form of pasta, you're going to eat it before you die.
Yeah, you're eating it because you're literally starving to death.
Yeah, but they said someone was feeding him water.
They would have had to if he would.
They would have to have been, right?
In like 5 days. I don't think he lasts very long without water. I think you can only last like a week without water.
No. Yeah, it's not very long.
No.
So someone was feeding him water.
Right.
But why wouldn't they give him food?
That is a great question, Nick. That's a great question. They don't never tell the answer to that.
No. So what we're probably figuring is that people sort of jetted out in different directions on their own at different times. Not a single one of them touching the road.
Right. Now you see where this makes no sense.
Yeah. And the guy, so they didn't find the guy, but he took out a blanket and flashlight. Did he leave at night?
They have no clue. There's no indication because they couldn't even find the guy after. So if he did leave with a flashlight, he clearly didn't take it with him to the point beyond that one spot, which makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
And one guy left his shoes.
Right.
Was that the guy they didn't find?
No. Completely separate guy. That guy, unfortunately, was kind of taken out by animals, is what they're assuming. The leftovers of him was from animals.
I wonder if he had shoes on at the time.
They never said, but I'm going to assume no.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't have had multiple pairs.
That's really weird. Yeah. I was thinking maybe he swapped shoes with the guy in the bed, but why would he do that if that guy was the first guy who got frostbite?
Yeah, that wouldn't make
His shoes are clearly not warmer.
Right.
Right.
There was one segment. I can't remember. I've got 2 segments because I built one. For those at home, you might not... this just might look like a weird cut. There was one thing I didn't think it was pertinent, but I had it in the second one. Let me see if it's in this. Let me see if I've got this. This is a little bit longer, but I can't. Let me double check. Hold on. Nope. Sorry, folks.
Okay.
The other segment basically broke into the point, and I took it out because there wasn't a whole lot there, and it wasn't really enough for a narration, and it wasn't really pertinent enough for the other one. But it did break down the fact that the 2 bodies that they found, it was almost as though there was extra equipment with them, which would give the indication that they probably was at that cabin at one point. Right. But they don't know if it was something that maybe they brought along with them too.
Yeah.
In addition to that, they said in that little small narration that there's no way of knowing whether they succumbed to the hypothermia on the way there or the way back, because with the conditions being as cold as what it was, it basically made the body what was that called? This is why I do narrations. It basically protected the body from decay because it was so cold. It would be like it was in a freezer, like the morgues will have those freezers. And they said it was cold enough to where that would be a thing. So, not a lot of extra information. Unfortunately, there just wasn't a whole lot of information on that case. It's kind of a mystery. What do you think, Nick? What do you think happened to him?
I've been speaking my mind this whole time. I've really not got a good idea of what it was. But like I said, the thing that's more mysterious. So Dyatlov Pass sort of had potentially a supernatural. It seemed like it had more supernatural elements or something like that. But this one takes the place over such a long period of time that it's almost a bigger mystery.
The amount of people speculating stuff, they do speculate some supernatural things.
Right. And there could be. But I just can't imagine what they would be.
Some people speculate that in that wooded area, there had been sightings of cryptids, and they believe that a Bigfoot may have scared them. There was nothing there that had anything to do with Bigfoot. And their other thing was, if Bigfoot would scare you, why would you get out of the car and try to outrun him by foot? It doesn't make sense.
I sure as heck wouldn't.
I also would not.
Not into his territory, into the woods.
There's other people that speculate that a UFO may have came over and turned the car off, and because they weren't astute, maybe they thought the car was broken, and then they walked, and that could have caused the cycle of events to have occurred. But again, there's no proof of that.
I'm a little more inclined to lean towards that, though.
Yeah. So there's some supernatural things that come into play, but there's no proof of any of that.
Yeah, that's just like wild speculation, pretty much like what we've been doing. Correct. But I just can't think of anything that like if I said some kind of explanation for this, I just wouldn't have any evidence to back it up. There's not anything that points to anything for this.
But it's so much like the Dyatlov Pass. So much like it.
It is. This is really a fun story. You know, because we can't pin it on anything.
No, we cannot.
Like anything we might say is going to be
possible.
You know, every explanation is equally plausible.
Correct. What says you out there in podcast land? Have you heard this story before? Did you know we had a Dyatlov here in the glorious United States of America? And what do you think happened to him? Do you think this is a case where they just got off the beaten path, they got confused, they got lost, and they didn't know how to survive? Do you think there was something supernatural that occurred within the confounds of this building in these woods? Tell us in the comments down below. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, much like the guy at the very beginning that talked about how smart and funny Nick and Bert was, that everyone should subscribe, you should subscribe. You really should.
Yeah, you're missing out.
Missing out. Well, Nick, I don't know that we can wrap this one up anymore. I don't know of any other conclusions we could come to, but
no, I got to say this is probably one of my very favorites now.
See, Dyatlov was mine. The American Dyatlov is yours.
Yeah, and I've got so much stuff to look up on this afterwards. Like, I need more info.
For sure. Well, until we see you on the next podcast, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
In 78, we hit the road. 5 friends with hearts on Was it